Well, as new details continue to emerge, the political world is now reacting to the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Today, Valley News Team's Quinn Gorham spoke with some of Minnesota's politicians about their reactions to the recent events.
There's no doubt he's a polarizing figure, but after Saturday's close call, former President Donald Trump has been at the center of nationwide calls for de-escalation. Monday, lawmakers here in the state of Minnesota condemned the assassination attempt in the strongest of terms. All four legislative leaders have issued statements on Saturday's assassination attempt, all of them saying in some form that violence has no place in the country's political discourse. Governor Tim Walz issued a similar statement on X on Saturday night, adding that he was praying for the safety of the president and the injured bystanders. While many state lawmakers took to social media to publish statements of their own, it was the Minnesota Civility Caucus that issued a joint statement on Monday. The Civility Caucus is a bipartisan group made up of lawmakers from both the Senate and House with the goal of calming the political discourse in Minnesota. DFLers and Republicans were clear about their thoughts on Saturday's events.
The fact that we're talking about a more unified approach to politics and trying to heal some of the divide that has occurred over the last few years, I think is important, and I truly hope it's what we see as we continue to move forward.
Regardless of our political affiliation, background, or life experiences, that we're coming out and saying that any sort of political violence or rhetoric that encourages political violence is a non-starter.
Campaign events will get back up to their normal pace in the next couple of days. After all, there is an election still just under 4 months away. That said, the Biden campaign has pulled things back a little bit in the last couple of days, pulling campaign ads off of the air and even canceling a planned event in St. Paul on Monday. Reporting in St. Paul, I'm Quinn Gorham.
Quinn reached out to both state party chairs, and while they did issue statements online, he did not hear back for requests for interviews.